A new era is upon us. Pulse has taken the world by storm as the leading Web3 social media. Beyond current features like casting, tipping, inscription trading, and earning, it's now elevating to the next level, on-chain.
Soil, a fully regulated, seamless link between traditional finance and the digital crypto world, offering secure returns fully backed by tangible, real-world assets.
The Credify testnet is live, so head on over to demo.credify.finance to see how you can effortlessly experiment with autonomous earning, NFT corporate bonds, Credi and X-Credi utilities, and Module X.
Good morning, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from London. It is just gone 1 minute past 11 a.m. here, and a slightly earlier show today, making it just gone 10 a.m. UTC. Big shout out to everybody joining the stream live today, as well as everybody that's going to be watching this on catch up. And good morning, Imran Khan, my friend. And yeah, a big shout out to all of the Bird Nest crew. So how are we all doing today? Going to take a look at Bitcoin, obviously. Going to take a look at Ethereum too, after we've had the ETF approval. So as always, we're going to be doing our alt request show. So if you've got anything, any asset, anything you want to see charted out, we normally focus on altcoins, but this can be traditional market assets as well, then please do let me know. You can drop it in the chat and we will take a look. So let's zoom out for a moment and take a look at what's going on with Bitcoin. So quite simply, the plan has not changed. Let's just get rid of these and let's get ourselves a line chart, shall we? Okay, so we're here on the weekly. Now, what were we looking for? What was giving us some kind of bullish incentive? Well, quite simply, we were targeting several weeks back the liquidity resting below this low. Now, we can see really when you look at this on a weekly scale that this really is kind of ranging around here. Yes, we have had a structure shift, which is notable. Let me draw that in for you guys so we can see this. So there's our high, higher low, lower high, now a lower low, all right? So this is what got everybody particularly bearish, I think, in this moment. Now, market structure is obviously key to how we trade, gives us a lot of good insights into the market. But what's making me feel very bullish at the moment, and has done, is the inversion of this gap, all right? Now, gaps, some of the best ways to think about gaps are kind of areas of repricing, if you like, all right? So we're talking about it in terms of, you know, if price is seeking liquidity above an old high or below an old low, then it often goes and moves to a gap in order to give you an indication of where it's likely to move next. So, for example, we had a very skinny gap here. Let me draw this one in for you guys so you can see it, all right? Now, the theory behind this is quite simple, really, and that's that when price comes up and takes any form of liquidity, and we took liquidity here, we also kind of generated our own internal liquidity here, right? We just swept. You can see price just kind of snuck above that high. Well, then we're looking to this area, this gap, for price to come down and rebalance, okay? Now, we can see we had an initial reaction here. Price came up off the gap. But then when we closed below it, you can see there's no acceptance here for price, right? So when we're looking at this from a point of liquidity, we're then thinking about where price is heading next. And then we target the key low, in this case, the swing low here on the weekly. So applying those same principles here, and obviously the focus here being on Bitcoin because pretty much controls the crypto market. When we violated this, the expectation was, especially after the structure break, right, that we were going to come down to here, revisit the gap, and then continue lower, okay? And I think that's where a lot of expectation was. However, it allowed us to catch some bullish trades because we believe that price is moving back towards this gap. But then look at this weekly candle last week, okay? That's week commencing the 15th. Now, that is a huge candle, all right? One of the biggest weekly candles we've printed in a while. And we're now looking for this area to hold as support. So we're going to move down to the daily quickly and take a look at how this is panning out. So for anybody that's kind of seen this across on Twitter recently or any of my posts, then this is the key area for me that I want to see us hold, all right? And what we're doing here is we're building up basically stacked support, right? We're coming into this, This area is holding. We're expecting repricing in this gap here. Price has had a nice expansion. We're now expecting this area to hold, but ideally we want to see this gap hold as well, and then to make a move on the liquidity that's resting up here. Okay, this is the level that's capping the market at the moment. All right, price has just kind of snuck up above this high, but ultimately you can see how aggressive the sell-off was here. Right, price really didn't have to mess with this level too much before it caused that kind of cascade downwards. So we want to see how price reacts here again, but you know, the likelihood is we will see a corrective move here. We want to see a kind of similar fractal pattern to this, but for this gap to be further up here, and then for this move to hold and ultimately send price towards new all-time highs. All right, so that's what we're thinking there. Goxel Pasa. I'm very sorry, my friend, if you think this is crypto verb. That sounds a little bit Polish to me. Beautiful language, beautiful people. Sadly, I don't speak it, I'm afraid, my friend. It's either that or potentially a token. But if you're just saying hello, then hello and very much welcome. But if anybody does have any tokens or any assets, any tickers that they want us to take a look at, then be more than happy to do that. So all of that said, I think Bitcoin's looking pretty simple at the moment, and the plan is very much the same. As long as we hold this gap, then I'm looking for continuation. All right. You can also see as well around this kind of area, right? You know, you got resistance here, turned to support for a while here, got back underneath. So this kind of provides a key area here as well that we want to look at. Now, it's not the cleanest, all right, but if you took it as an example from an SR kind of point of view, yeah, you would kind of look at this area here, support, all right, pushed up, took liquidity, broke beneath, retest, resistance, resistance, strong move above, support, support, back underneath it again, and then the sell-off. Obviously, that's a very, very rough area, but you can see again, in terms of a point of mitigation, this is what we're looking for. Now, there's a very small consolidation in here as well that interests me, and I'll tell you as for why. Because if we look at this and that word I just used there in terms of mitigation, right, then this was a bearish order block that led to price selling off quite aggressively, right? So what you want to see in these areas generally is like a traditional support and resistance flip, right? So you want to see an expansion above it, and then you want to see bullish gaps, bullish order blocks, for example, form in here. This, for me, isn't valid, these two down close candles, until price closes above it, all right? So I'm really, really keenly interested in this area, and I am feeling bullish. You know, I think we've got bullish news coming into the market. I do think that, you know, when you look at the pricing now for Trump to get back in at the White House, I think that's massive for the economy, right? You know, say what you want about him as a person, but, you know, the economy absolutely thrived under him, or the markets certainly did anyway. So, you know, let's see. We've got a brilliant event coming up in Nashville this weekend. My dear friend, Trading Tank and fellow TBN, the Bird Nest member, and one of our very, very finest analysts, Jay, Trading Tank, you guys will know him for on Twitter, is going to be there. So do give us a shout out if you're there. We will be doing kind of meet and greets and bits and pieces. But, you know, with Trump being there, or supposedly being there, you feel like this is all kind of shaping up to give us a really big catalyst and a drive higher in the markets, right? So what if that doesn't happen, right? Because as a trader, one of the things you learn very early in your career is that you get slapped in the face pretty hard if you marry your bias. So quite simply, it just means you need a plan to trade it both ways. And quite simply, you know, it's this, right? Unless we close below this, right? In which case this would violate this. You'll see this then turn purple on my charts to show that we've inverted it. It becomes an inversion gap then. Basically an area that should have provided support would then most likely turn to resistance. So we would get that close below. We would look for this area to be retested, right? And then you would look for liquidity to be tested lower. But we would only start with these lows. Now, something that most new traders kind of get wrong here is that, and these are equal lows as well, right? So they don't have to be perfect, but whenever you kind of see these are an unbelievable draw on liquidity. So a lot of things that people get wrong with this is thinking that as soon as you get below here, that this is, you know, then going to absolutely, cascade to the downside. And that's simply not true, right? One of the things that we're looking at here, we're saying, okay, price is just looking for liquidity lower, right? If it's not got acceptance at that price, think of it like this, from a kind of liquidity perspective, right? But think of it like this. Everything is based around supply and demand. If you want to go and buy an apple, right? And that apple is, say, £1, for example, or €1 or $1, right, for the apple, that's fine. And people will continue to buy apples at that price. As long as it's considered value. Now, if the market floods with apples and there's more than people need and tons more than people want, then the price is most likely to go down because you've just got an oversupply, all right? However, if there's only 10 apples left in the world, how much do you think that apple would be worth, right? So we apply this to Bitcoin, and why some of the smartest people that I certainly know, much, much smarter than me, have educated me over the years with Bitcoin is, it's the supply is getting less, right? So it really is kind of a matter of time, I think, before this aligns. But anyway, before we get onto the two bigger picture, something that we can do here, right, is, and let me clean this up for a second, is price could come all the way down to take out these lows. Yeah, it could do that today, right? For all we know. Let's see if I can draw a straight line downwards. But the candle could absolutely finish like that. Induce the market, people start to panic, day traders, everybody start to short this, saying, okay, we're moving down, we're coming below here, we're now moving down towards this low, you're looking at a shift in structure, all for that to just be a humongous liquidity pool that people can buy into, and then the market can reverse the other way. So really, really simply today, these are the plans, right? Hold this area, higher prices. Close below this, I think we do come down to reprice a little bit lower. We have to remember we've got these inefficiencies here as well. We've got these gaps. The markets love to kind of target these gaps as well. But overall, I think it's very, very difficult to not be bullish on cryptocurrency at the moment. And, I'm not someone that overlays too much fundamentals into stuff, although I have a wonderful fundamental team that work alongside me. But you have to factor these things in, especially like with the news. And I think that things really could be gearing up for a move. So that all said, let us take a look at some of your requests, shall we? So I am going to try that Passer Goxel, just in case it is one on there, right, mate? So I will take a look at that. If not, I'll look up what it says and get back to you later on. Okay, Simon, really interested in this one, right? So EFI, yeah, no problem. We take a look at ZEDK. Powell, yeah, no problem, mate. We'll take a look at RUNE. And Andre, yeah, of course we can, mate. We'll take a look at Sol BTC as well. And thank you, Imran Khan, my friend. Yeah, do smash the likes, guys, if you enjoy the content. And let me know if you don't. Always looking to improve the show. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. We try and do more of the things that people want to see. And ultimately, no offense, I don't really care about what you want to see. I care if the information is useful to you. The idea of this is to help people, right? So what are we doing from here? If we want to go a bit more granular on this, let me just turn the session breaks off for a moment. All right, then how does this play out, right? How do we now take this onto the lower time frames, yeah? And then make a play out of this. So let's clear this up first of all. Remember, while we hold this, it's not purple. I'm going to do it in green for you guys, anybody that's maybe not familiar with it, all right? Imran, of course, my friend. Andre, you legend. GBP, yeah, sure. Actually, GBP started the week, started quite strongly as it goes. So yeah, let's absolutely take a look at this. So ultimately, there's a couple of different ways we can look at this, yeah? Very good sound this time. Awesome. I moved the mic a little bit closer for you, Andre. So I had a few people saying that the mic was a bit, I sounded a little bit too loud and stuff like that. But I think actually now we've kind of reconfigured the settings. And thank you for the compliments, mate. So look, all we're going to do is just overlay the same principles to this. Okay. So what have we done? We've taken liquidity from a low. We're reacting a bullish daily gap. And we're also reacting here at a 4-hour bearish gap. All right, so I'm just going to pop H4 in here, yeah, just so that we can take a look and we can discern between the two. So again, looking at that theory of like stacked support, right? You can see how this area is holding, and I love these moves to the downside, right? You know, people start to panic, people, you know, they kind of play around with too much leverage. Ultimately, the market likes to correct that, wipe those people out, and then we can continue with the up only. Now, the kind of ETH ETF has thrown a kind of an interesting kind of gauge into the mix, right? Because typically, as we saw what happened with Bitcoin, you know, people expected just an immediate reaction here, and actually what we got was, you know, a period of calm before price really started to move. So what do we want to see on Bitcoin here? Well, we're looking at this in two different ways, really. We've got this that we would need for a structure break. Okay, so you'd be coming down into here, or a structure shift, really. So we would want to see some expansion above this. And then you want to see, you know, your classic support and resistance flip, all right? Or in this case, resistance to support flip, okay? Now, we don't have any gaps in here, right? If we had a fair value gap in here, we would be looking for the same as we discussed on the higher time frame, which was for a violation of that gap. The other thing that I'm interested in here as well is this candle. But let me tell you as for why. Because as we can see on here, this up close candle here, yeah, what does this do, right? These up close candles here, when we close below them, as we did with this one, yeah, the up close candle becomes a bearish order block, right? So what we're doing here, you can see how price retests into this area and ultimately sells off, right? So now we can see we had the same thing happen here. So this area is where the sellers are. Think of it like that, right? Then if we're using that to move above it, that's when I'm going to start to get interested. But really, it's this here that would become our bullish order blocks. These down close candles here, we want to see price close above here, change its state of delivery, right? So as you can see here, when you're in a sell model, or when you're in a bearish thing, or when you're in market structure to the downside, bearish market structure, then what you want to see is you want to see the up close candles, yeah, offer resistance. So up close candle offers resistance, up close candle offers resistance. When you're bullish, you want to see the down close candles offer support, yeah. So look, down close candle here, close above it, price doesn't come back. All right, now we can see another example of it over here. Now, you've got to remember, although I draw it like that, and there's different ways that people interpret these order blocks, all right, we're actually looking at this whole area here, yeah? So the down close candles here, because they're consecutive, I allow for all of them, but I always take the flat of the body rather than the wick. As soon as we close above it, we change that state of delivery. You're then saying, okay, you want to see this area hold. And quite often as well, you know, we want to look for the equilibrium to hold. So if I just draw the 50% of that, you know, pretty incredible really when you look at it, right? So down close candles here, this area becomes our order block. What happens when price closes above it here? See how it holds the EQ of that, and then you see these long downside wicks emerging. Once again, we then get a secondary state here where this order block is then confirmed. When this closes above it, and ultimately price moves higher. So that's what I'm looking for, just to kind of break that down, to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm thinking about. So now we're going to apply those principles, and we're going to dive into the charts, all right? And we're going to take a look to see, we've got ETH, ZEDK, RUNE, Sol BTC, sorry, and GBP USD. Andre, you use Elliott Wave, do you, to predict the top of the market or to get an idea? I know you don't use it. How do you predict the top? I like to see your view. Yeah, okay, mate. Very, very good question. So first of all, and I really don't mean this to sound twattish, I really do try and stay away from predictions, right, in terms of that. Now, I used to actually, I studied Elliott Wave for a number of years, actually, and worked with a very successful, one of the, probably the most famous traders in the space using Elliott Wave as well. For me, I don't disrespect any methodology that people want to use on markets. I think, look, if it works for you, it works. Ultimately, it's your bottom line that makes the difference at the end of the day. And just quickly, these equal highs here, I think, are still what's drawing price higher. All right, huge liquidity pool resting above there. So let me show you. For me, I'm looking a lot at kind of how the market moves and how it displaces. All right, so for that, I'm very, very, very interested. And let's just go to our, In fact, let's go. Let's take a look at a real old school chart here, shall we? What are we doing here? Well, here's some TA for you that we got on Coinbase. Nice long-term chart, this one, so lots and lots of data. Let's just bang them into a group and start with a nice fresh chart, shall we? Perfect. So I'm typically looking for how price reacts at highs and how it reacts at lows. Okay, so for example, this level, and this has been a really, really key level here as well as has this one. So look how when price moves into this level, and again, let's just give another example so that we can get some context for this, right? When this was the all-time high over here, yeah, then what happened? Pushed up into this area. Yeah, or not the high, so an all-time up here. So when price pushed into, so look at how price expanded beyond this level. Look at the body of that candle, right? The volume, and SC taught me this. I'll always be grateful for the amount that I learned from that man. But the volume of the trading is in the bodies. The wicks are where price tried to get to, yeah? The bodies are where it succeeded. Now, if you've got that amount of buying strength in here, then, you know, for me, I expect continuation. So you get continuation from here. You can also see how much we displaced above the previous weekly high here. Then what you're looking for is you're saying, okay, well, where's the area of interest? You know, price doesn't just go up in straight lines, although sometimes looking at a Bitcoin chart, you wouldn't believe it, right? But ultimately, it's one of those things that while you're bullish, you want to be favoring long setups, right? You know, an old saying, but still a very good one. The trend is your friend until the end. So when you see bullish gaps, or you see bullish order blocks, right, they become the key areas of interest for me. And look what happened here. When we closed above this, yeah, close. Again, look, the big body on the candle, right? Yes, there's a small downside wick here, but you've got to remember that people are going to be taking profit, right? You're also going to have people up here that are going to take the other side of that bid, right? And they're going to try and catch the liquidity that's resting above here and send the market the other way. Ultimately, you can see we expand above this, we close above this, confirming this as an order block, and then retest it pretty much to the cent, yeah, to the point. And then when we come away from here, we have that secondary expansion, then we leave this bullish gap, right? So, you know, when we get this happen, remember, this doesn't alter, this isn't setting, you know, this isn't confirming this. There's 4 consecutive up close candles here. For this to become a bearish order block, we'd need to close below the body of this one, certainly how I look at it. So while I'm up here, I'm happy to intraday or very short swing position trade this lower, because I think this is where we're targeting. But as soon as we get to here, I'm just simply looking for longs, all right? So while we're in a bullish state of delivery, I am bullish. However, when we're setting these highs, really, really important, right? Even this high gave us a really key indication here, right? You can see above here, look, price comes above, closes. We want this area to hold. This down close candle then becomes our order block, you know, and again, expecting continuation here, right? But to what point? So remember, if this becomes our OB here, just overlaying the same principles here again, right? Just going to pop Fibonacci on there so that we can just see the 50%. And look what happens, right? Not the cleanest in the world. Price comes and closes above here. We expect continuation higher. Well, what does that mean? Continuation to where? Well, price is always seeking liquidity. So quite simply, expecting continuation up to the next swing high. That's the swing high. So price, yes, held above here, set the swing high here. Look how it respected the equilibrium. But then look what happens once we took that high. We sweep that high. Now look at the long upside wick here. This is like a spinning top, like a doji candle, right? Shows indecision in the market. Now, really, when you see these kind of candles form, yeah, and again, another classic from SC, but small body candles lead to big bodied candles, yeah? Now, if there's really conviction here, look how we moved through this level. This is telling me that price is looking to move higher. This is telling me that it's consolidating, which I'm absolutely fine with. But then if you kind of look at how price then comes and closes below here, and also closes below this swing low, right? Again, body close below, big body candle. Yes, we have a pullback here, but this is your indication that the market's getting ready to move in the opposite direction. So that's just for the context, all right? Now, when we come into this level, this is why I got bearish very, very early on this. And again, I'm not saying that I wasn't saying that this is the top at the time. What I was saying was we've had a large expansion higher. If you look back through my feed, timeline, or any of the information that I've shared over at the Bird Nest, then quite simply, this is what I was looking for here. That should have been offering support, right? Price came up, took liquidity above the high. That's fine. Did we displace above this? Look at the candle. Small body, big wick. This is telling you that sellers are starting to get control here, as was this. Yeah, so very tentatively pushing up. This is, you know, people driving in with belief, people expecting that continuation higher, generating lots and lots of liquidity. And then what happens? Price comes up above here, takes liquidity above, and then really starts to sell off, okay? So that's why we look at this in terms of highs and lows and everything we're going on there. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, price is pretty much, you know, obviously you really got to zoom out, but price spends most of its time in a range, yeah? So, you know, it spends actually a lot less of its time trending, which people think. But again, you know, context, depending on the time frame that you're looking on. And exactly right, this is a swing failure pattern, right? And these things are very, very, very powerful, all right? So you've got a couple of different things you would look at here. You've taken liquidity from this high. That's the swing low, right? That's the low that took the high, yeah? And there's a fantastic trader and a fellow Brit who I really probably don't give a shout out enough to, Tyler Durden or Ape Durden on Twitter. Guy is absolutely magic, and remember listening to his, well, for a lot of years, but you know, he would always talk about in terms of, look, you know, you're looking for this low that took the high. If you're breaking down below that, you close below this here, you see that shift. This is the area you want to look at. Looking at this area here, you get back above it. Okay, maybe we see some continuation. You know, getting down below it in that area, you're hunting short setups. And then if we overlay our theory about gaps as well, when we close below this gap here, yeah, it's a really long, strong close, and we actually come down, don't quite close below this secondary gap. But showing weakness here is telling me that price is seeking liquidity below a low. So it gives you the conviction to trade it down into these areas here. So when we're looking at this, you know, SC would, you know, if anybody of you watch these videos, and if you haven't, you're absolutely missing out. But this is a deviation. Price has come underneath. We expect price to then come down, right? And my good friend Trader Dank would say as well, you know, if Johnny's left the building here, what the hell is he doing back in the house? And it's probably a bit too early before the watershed to tell you the rest of that story, but I do suggest you go and give that legend a follow and a like if you haven't as well, and ask him about Johnny and the pizza, all right? So in the same vein, let's just kind of overlay that in how we look at lows as well. And let's just take this as an example. Again, look, key support here, actually, if you draw this back a little bit, more like an area, but you can see again the displacement above this level. It would have been slightly lower here, all right? Then when price comes back into this, yeah, look, we've got support here. We had support here. That long downside wick was early signs of encouragement that buyers might be stepping back in. But then again, the failure to shift structure, the failure to kind of get above this gap here was telling you, and you can see how the momentum starts to die here. Buyers have stepped in, comes in here, buyers again, but then look at the candle. Look how we get, this is called in traditional market terms a pin bar with a small or short nose, okay? So you can just see that little upside wick appearing. Now, all of a sudden, the strength being shown by the buyers here, this is, again, is people taking profit as well, is then completely flipped when you get this inverse hammer here, right? This pin bar, again with a short nose, the downside. Look what the wicks tell you. The bulls tried to drive price all the way up into here. What ultimately were they driving up into? I know I sound like a broken record, but I do like to keep things simple. They were driving up into a bearish gap. Closing above this gap would give us an indication that there was more strength in the market, right? You know, think of these as kind of fuel depots or supply stations, right? And basically you've got a journey from A to B, and you don't, you know, B is just as far as you can get down. Well, quite simply, you've made that portion of the leg, right? You then need to go and refuel. Ultimately, if you find enough fuel in there, in this case, you know, bearish fuel to the downside, then you can continue your journey. However, if there's not enough fuel in there and you're going to absolutely sap it dry, then you're going to invert this, and this is going to be your indication that it needs to seek more resources higher up. Obviously, we didn't get that, so that wasn't a problem. And Andre, you're very welcome, mate. And so you're looking for the first top, and then you're looking at how the price reacts to the first top. Yeah, exactly. Duncan, hello, mate. Great to have you here with us. Welcome. You're looking for the price to react to the first top. I don't know if it's made correctly what I understood. No. You absolutely have explained it correctly, my friend. Very, very good explanation, in fact. So just any high or any low, right, on any time frame, because price is fractal. So if we get rid of all of this now, right, and focus on where we currently are, all right? So very vocal about the key level that I was watching, 69,000 flat here on Femex. And then let's look at how price reacts here, okay? Versus, and I know obviously hindsight is a wonderful thing, yeah? But look at this here. That's why this was such a sneaky candle, right? Because look at the expansion through this level. So I'm looking for how price reacts at a key level. And for me, that's highs, lows, and gaps, all right? So quite simply and very, very simply put, when price reaches this key level here, right, as we did, this at the time was the all-time high, price ran into this area, yeah? In fact, I think, well, I remember very well, I was in Bucharest for, I cannot remember the name of the, I can't remember the name of the conference we were out there at, but out there with some, magnificent, pretty much all of the Bird Nest fam were out there as well. We had some wonderful people out there. My good friend Petrix Barbosa, Match Chain CEO, and loads of people. We were in a big crypto-friendly club partying, and basically everybody had their phones out watching this happen. But it was also time to be a little bit cautious here, yeah, because, price came up, didn't close above it, didn't close above it again, didn't close above it again. But again, look at the wicks on the candle. This is the market trying to really just push its way up, okay? Now, we all have different theories as to why markets do what they do, all right? But at the same time, for me, I was thinking up here that, this was, for me, I was feeling really bullish here, but I was also thinking that I'm not sure, major institutions, hedge funds, people like that are going to put this on their balance sheet. I just think it was just a little bit higher. So, quite openly said, I think this is probably a really good price for price to come down and find support. We did initially and thought, okay, some nice bids in there, still holding these actually. We made a move higher up into this area. We've now come down a little bit lower, but what I really like about this here is we've taken out this low. Why is that low key? Because it's a low that's within a bullish gap, a double liquidity pool, all right, for any ICT traders out there. And I really think, by the way, I know he really comes in for a lot of stick, but I was fortunate enough to be part of Michael's original mentorship. And I have to say, the guy really does understand price action. Interesting character, right? And, theories and bits and pieces on algorithms driving the market, which incidentally, I think, they have done for a long time. But, whatever you think of him, the truth is that he really does understand price action, and he would call this an intermediate term low, right? Meaning it's a low basically within a gap. There's other factors to it, but that's kind of the best way to kind of put it across. So again, look at how price reacts down here. Yeah, that's why I was really bullish on this one, right? Price dipped into this. Look at this big downside wick. Price is getting bought up for fun. But we failed to really displace. We did close below this. But again, remember, look for what happens next. My good friend Bast, who works with me over at Bird Nest as well, fantastic analyst, always waits for the secondary candle, yeah, and whatever time frame he's looking for. He would say here, okay, you've got the close, right? And especially if, for example, something like this is prime Bast territory, this. Pin bar, yeah, bearish because long upside wick, short body towards the end. Now, that would make a lot of people bearish here, but so would that candle, and price continued higher. What Bast would say is wait for the pin bar and then wait to see it be followed by a engulfing candle, all right? So as you look at that go across there, then that is absolutely key. Give me 1 second, guys, just going to grab a glass of water. Oh, that is better, guys. You can only survive on tea for so long. So, sorry, I know I've been rattling on about this for a while, but I think it's a really good question from Andre. So we have this, we get this close below, we then get back above very quickly. This made me super bullish. Why? Because, well, realistically, if you're going to start displacing above highs or lows, then you want to see that continuation. Again, this is a prime example. What happened? Big, strong close above this. Did price then come back below it? It absolutely didn't. All right. So that's a really good one to know. And Andre, absolutely, mate. I'll definitely let you know. I have some good friends now out in Romania, and there's a lot of different places out there that I'd really love to see. It's things like Transylvania and bits and pieces. So I will definitely have it all over Twitter next time that I go and visit. So basically, whether you're doing it on this, and just to kind of move this onto a point, let's just choose a time frame at random, right? Or not at random. I really do favor the 15 minutes, right? But looking at this, let's turn my dear friend Geo's indicator off for a second. There we go. Now, same principles apply, okay? And we're just going to go just a couple of times just in case it's helpful for people. Look, key high here, people getting super bullish. Yeah, absolutely fine with that. No problem with that whatsoever. And I can understand why. Big displacement takes out all the liquidity above these highs here, and ultimately looks like it's getting ready to move. Now, we don't have a market structure break. We have a shift here. For a break, we would then need to set a higher low and then expand beyond this high. All right. So what happened? Big bullish move above. Would I be feeling bullish here? Yeah, absolutely. I'd be saying to myself, right, okay, well, I'm not just going to blindly go and long into these things. Yeah. I'm going to say to myself, okay, well, what have I got below that's going to give me some indication here? Well, this gap. So if price is really bullish, then I expect this gap to hold. It doesn't. But still, I've not got a massive problem with that. Thank you, Imran, my friend. Because we've not really come that low. So to hold that, if we got long setups in here, I would be crazy bullish. Yeah, crazy bullish. And what would a long setup look like to me? Quite simply, I look for this kind of fractal pattern in price, right? Full disclosure, look for a low, wait for that low to be swept. Then I want to see the high that's swept the low, closed above with displacement. I've drawn that like a bit of a twat, but we'll move that across. Yeah, I want to see displacement through. I want to see an energetic move telling me that, look, if price is continuing down, this area should hold. I want to see price blast through that area here. And then I want to take my bids here. All right. So that's where I want to, look around there, because I've got pre-made stop loss. Yeah, I know where I'm wrong. If price then does the reverses and comes back the other way, then I'm really quite certain that we're going to be going in the other direction. And then, we've got a pre-made liquidity target above this higher time frame high, all right? That's all that I'm typically looking for when I'm looking. And obviously the opposite for shorts. Now, this is why we don't want to marry a bias, because we invert this. This is our first sign that price is moving lower, okay? I've just drawn a Fibonacci from the low to the high to split it with the 50%, all right? I will get around to doing all the picks for the altcoins as well, guys. Apologies, but I just want to kind of cover this off. I know it's turning into a bit more of an education session, but hopefully it's of use to some people. But this is what I'm really interested in. Okay, because look, for me, that's not enough displacement below that. Okay, I'd want to see a strong close. This one is, yeah. So while this holds here, I'm saying to myself, well, okay, we're down in the 50%. And I'm particularly interested in this part of it as well, the lower 50%, because this is in the lower 50% of this expansion range. And quite often algos, bots, etc., like to see these retracements here because it's quite binary, right? It's something that you can program. Now, as you hold this area here, look at how the candles, start to really confirm the bearishness on here. Yeah, we get this kind of doji, but ultimately the upside wicks are really kind of winning the battle here. Then when we get the close below here, that's an inversion. And then I'm saying to myself, right, where's price going to move to next? Key liquidity resting below this low. And also something I'd be, watching here as well, those equal lows. From an intraday perspective, you look for a pullback on this and for that to be attacked. Again, look what happens. Key level displaced below it, then gives you the indication that price is ultimately moving lower, all right? So hopefully that was of use, guys. That's just kind of how I see it. And that's why I'm saying on any kind of time frame, just looking at how price moves above these highs and lows. Just another quick example here, this high or that. Look, you can just see, right, as price kind of comes into these levels, and even if you kind of draw that further back to these highs here, well, I think actually probably, yeah, those equal highs there as well. you can see how this kind of level has significance. Swept, sold off, came back to the same area, sold off again. Comes into here, but off the back of that, what do? We come down and we find this bullish gap down here. We set a higher low, yeah, and then we get that expansion. Now we're above this level again. Look at the expansion in this candle. It holds. So now we're looking for price to move further up, okay? And we would just overlay that onto any time frame that we're looking at. So now what we're going to do is overlay this. All right, and we are going to take a look at some charts. And Duncan, absolutely, mate. Do you think Rose could revisit? Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look, my friend, and we'll definitely take a look at ETH as well. So we'll finish up with ETH. So we've been asked for ETH Fire. I'm guessing this one is it. Let's do the spot one on here, shall we, with our friends over at Binance. So weekly, big pump off the lows. What's price telling us here? Well, you know, we don't want to read too much into this. It probably looks like there's a gap here. But what we do know is that we have this bearish gap here drawing price higher. Let's do that in red for you guys. So on a weekly scale, I want to see price close above this. And then I think this thing will very well, quite aggressively make a move for 5.4. Okay. Now on the daily, if we're overlaying the same theory, we can see price getting rejected here. I'm absolutely fine with this. I know ETH5 probably doesn't give two hex what I'm fine with, but look, this, you can see how price is getting rejected in this area, right, on a daily scale. What have we done? Well, we've got this high capping the market at the moment. Again, if we follow it back this way, it's a high within a gap. Yeah, so it's quite significant. It's a significant liquidity pool, but price actually seems to be holding here quite well. So again, remember, if we're bullish, which we are, why are we bullish here? Well, quite simply, higher low. This is the moment that we broke market structure. Now we're looking for this to confirm as another higher low and for price to continue to move up. Kind of, you know, start getting below these lows here and we start to see that shift in structure. That's maybe when we want to be a bit more cautious. But ultimately, we're holding key levels here. Now, remember, in terms of our order blocks, what do we want to see? Well, as we said, if we are bullish, which we are on a daily scale, we want to see the down close candles support price, big expansion through it, confirms the order block, support, 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 almost support again. So for me, this area is really key if we do come down here. I want to see this hold and then really push up. Solomon K, my friend, how are you doing? And obviously we have this order block here as well, right? So down close candle, price expands above it, redraws almost immediately into it and finds buyers again. And like I said, this area at the moment is kind of capping the market. But ultimately, and if we just draw this out as an OB as well, which you'll see on my charts in blue, then what we want to see here, right, is just see this equilibrium hold, yeah? So you see price dipping into it at the moment. That's kind of what I'd be... that's what I'd be looking at. All right. So if we want to do that and then we want to move across and maybe take a look at it on the 4 hour. Pa Umo. Hello, friend. There's a novice. No problem, mate. Novice is more than welcome here as well. Many ways to trade this market. So this is what we're looking at here, right? So again, if we're overlaying this, then at the moment on a 4 hour scale to get kind of bullish here, I'd really want to see this gap inverted. All right. So this is the bearish gap that we've got. Price drawing back towards this. I think this could easily draw back here and still reject a goer. But at the moment, we're holding the equilibrium of the order block. And we're now looking for a close above this, in which case I think we make a move on this higher. And then I think we could move a lot higher. So ETH Fire, that is thoughts on there. Let's take a look at ZK. We'll stick with our friends over at Binance, shall we? So weekly scale, huge wick down here, right? So you obviously, there's not lots of data on here on a weekly scale, not really much that we can kind of glean from this, but we can look and kind of say to ourselves, actually, you know, down close candle, expansion above, price holding this, yeah? So now if we move to a daily, we're going to be looking to see if we get anything of interest here. And again, watching this kind of quite skinny gap that we've got here, right? So price currently rebalancing this. So that's really, really interesting. We've also come back down into this order block, right? So again, we can see price. We just really want to kind of see this area hold. Again, if we kind of draw this out as an OB, move this across onto here. You know, happy to see price kind of come and wick down into this area, but ultimately we can see the support area that we have here. We want to see this gap hold. We do come down, we can draw down a little bit further into this, absolutely fine with that. But I think we start closing below this. I think we're going to get that indication when we invert this and then see this low attacked down here. So that low is resting down at 0.16107,697. Okay, so in terms of kind of more of our intraday plays or looking at this, then we can obviously leave that there for the higher time frame. I quite like how these downside wicks are really kind of making their way into this, right? Now, ultimately, we can see this wasn't massively respected here. That was inverted, right? Offered support here again. When we close below that, expectation is for price to come down and attack the liquidity below the next lows. And we did, right? We have done that and we have cleared out that liquidity there. Price did move up here, all right? And again, you can get this on some of the slightly less liquid assets. But on a 4-hour scale, I think really, if we're looking at this, okay, we've got the down close candle here. Let's see price start to move above this and then a little close above this. I think we could see at least these kind of highs attacked here. And what have we got here? We're looking at the high at 0.19416,173. So ZK done and dusted. Let's take a look at RUNE. Yeah, absolutely, Axel. We can take a look at Injective for you. No problem. RUNE. Let's take a look. Oh. Okie doke. So what were we looking here for last time on RUNE? This must have been a gap. Perfect, right? So look, same principle applied, drawing back towards the weekly gap. Again, when you kind of see these areas revisited, I know we didn't really get, you know, this is huge expansion, right, which we've seen across crypto in general. So since we've done that, we have now inverted this, right? So expecting this area to hold as support. There are inefficiencies in here. These are caused when the market sells off, just overwhelming sell orders coming in here. So you don't see that efficiency in the market. But again, like most gaps, yeah, like this one, price often likes to come back to revisit these and then either continue or, you know, close above them, which we failed to do here, and move higher. We have closed above this one now. So the expectation here on RUNE is for a little bit of a bullish resurgence. Now, looking at this on a daily scale, we can see what we're looking for. I think this is probably more from a 4-hour chart we were looking at before, but ultimately price coming into this area, taking this out, because look, why were we targeting this higher? Simply because look, bearish gap, closed above it here, retested it beautifully, price ultimately heading for the next point of liquidity. Then we look at how price reacts at that level. We got that strong close above it, and then we got that continuation. So on a daily scale at the moment, you know, this is looking super, super bullish. In terms of what we want to see here, well, if we got the down close candle here, if you want to go in terms of more confirmation, then I would say closing above this, setting this as the order block, as we did down here, right? Again, and this is what we must have been looking at the time, down close candle, price closed above. So we're looking for this area to hold and move up, or I would imagine, as the arrow shows, you're looking for it to violate, which we never did. So quite simply, that was the higher time frame order block, also an order block on the 4-hour, because consecutive down close candles. Price closed above it here, and we saw we got the same on the daily, expecting price to move higher. Then we're saying to ourselves, right, this is our key liquidity level. We're going to get one of two things: displace above it, as we saw we did on the daily, and expect continuation, or as this shows, we would have been moving down below this. We never got that close. If we had got the close, this is what we would have got. That would have inverted. We would have looked for price to draw into that, treat that as resistance, and ultimately then move down to this low, which we targeted down here. Thankfully for everybody in the crypto space, we got that move higher. Now, looking at this on a 4-hour, always kind of saying, what's the last real key thing from a point of liquidity that price has done? And we can see here, we've cleared out these lows, relative equal lows, all right? Look down there, And then we had that beautiful move higher. Okay, yeah, we did displace below that. But again, remember, displacement below, immediate recovery, we're now expecting this to be bullish. So the key thing here is that the last kind of liquidity the price has taken is from the lows. So now our expectation is for it to seek liquidity higher. It's left a little failure swing in here. So love to see this kind of area hold and then price to move up. As we're looking at this in terms of order blocks, we have these down close candles here. Down close candle, failed to close above it at the moment, but on a 4-hour scale, if we get that close above, then absolutely think we're coming up here. Remember, this is the high time frame order block that we're looking for there to confirm, so we would need that on the daily. But ultimately, these highs up here look super, super tempting, all right? So I would expect price to move for that. Right, so what's next on our list? RUNE is done. Sol BTC is looking interesting. So let's zoom our way right out again. Take a look where we are. Beautiful expansion here. We have closed above this higher, right? A little slither of a close, but a close nonetheless. So on a weekly scale, you know, look, this is looking really, really strong. Okay, again, as we've seen with most crypto, a big, big expansion last week. So it doesn't kind of tell us tons. What I would say, though, is, you know, this acted again beautifully as our order block, right? What do we get? Closed above it, retest to this area, expansion higher. Now we're kind of saying, okay, well, Pavel, you're more than welcome, my friend. You know, we now down close candle here. Have we kind of caught this area now? Now, I'm just going to draw this back to here for a moment because we've taken that liquidity. So there's now an expectation that price will pull back a little bit, you know, have a lower time frame consolidation before then making a move higher. In terms of higher targets, 0.00289114 is what I have my eye on here, just then looking for this area to hold. So as we move down onto a daily now, we're saying, okay, well, what kind of overlay is that with our theory? Well, again, I think we've got a little very skinny gap here. We can see prices failure once, now twice to close below that. So this is the area that we would be looking to kind of take longs from. Now, obviously, if we do break down below this, it's absolutely fine. I think, you know, when you look at this expansion higher and we've got this high time frame order block starting here and coming all the way, you know, a lot lower down, this whole area can provide support. So I wouldn't really be getting bearish on this anytime soon. I think if we close below this, I'd consider intraday shorts down to this gap. But ultimately, I think we've got a really kind of strong area of support here across higher time frames as well. But remembering, whenever you take liquidity, you know, from a high or a low, we want to see how price reacts here, and that's a strong expansion. Higher. So we want to see price now respect this gap. All right. So that's it on a daily. Let's take a look at the 4-hour. So again, you can see, look at this high time frame level here, price really respecting this. Ultimately, we then overlay this here with our 4-hour bullish gap as well. Yeah, I mean, bears just haven't managed to get this below, have they, right? So when you look at it like that, look at that cluster of downside wicks there, showing absorption, showing the buyers are stepping in here. So I think in terms of upside targets, we've taken liquidity above this kind of internal high here. Not a problem. I really kind of like this high here when we look at it. So that's up at 0.0027155. But again, you know, hard not to be bullish on these. Yes, on the 4-hour, kind of breaking structure, a little bit microstructure, if you like, but technically, you know, we're holding all the key levels. So expansion from here is the order of the day, in my opinion, anyway. So Sol BTC, GBP, USD for our friend Imran Khan. Let's get it on here, shall we? There we go. So on a weekly scale, still got all the old testing on here. Hang on, let's just pop that back. Set that up as old data. And start with a nice clean chart, yeah? So looking at this one here and getting a feel for this, obviously, you know, currency, FX assets like this, huge amount of history to them. What are the key things we're looking for? Well, let's take a look at this. That high to me looks of great interest. And why would that be of great interest here? Well, that I think is probably the key draw on liquidity here. In terms of a level to hold, I would be looking at this. So again, that was like, if you like, price that took that liquidity from this high, sold off. Price has now expanded back above this high and through this failure swing here, not a swing failure, a failure swing, meaning it has failed just before going there. These often provide fantastic liquidity targets for price. As we did, we reacted off our bullish gap here, and then we've had that nice expansion. So what am I looking for here? Well, this I think is a really nice area to kind of target in terms of getting a support and resistance flip, but we do also have this really nice bullish gap here as well. So be looking for price to kind of hold this and this level for continuation up to 1.314. So as a Brit who trades the market with dollars and but obviously lives in London, I do like to see a strong dollar against the pound. So I hope this thing calms down sometime soon. Sorry, bypass the daily. So now we can kind of get a bit more context from the daily. We can see how this level is being held quite nicely, just showing us basically that, look, if the sellers were really aggressive here before, we've stepped into this now. Doesn't seem like they're kind of stepping in with such vigor at the moment. We overlay our same principles. We have our weekly gap. We now have a daily gap sat above this. If you wanted a little bit of extra confirmation from here, then, you could look for this inversion, right? Because this is a bearish gap. So price closing above this would give me a lot of conviction that we were coming in for this high here at 1.30445, and then ultimately our weekly high 1.31424. Even more granular than that, we can see price having a nice kind of reaction here. Now, I would say we have this cluster of down close candles here. Let's see price close above these. Yeah, 4-hour close above this. Then we want to look into this as a retest. And again, classic old pattern of watching for these liquidity sweeps and recoveries. And that's the kind of thing we would look for. We would look for price to kind of step in, sweep a low, expansion through it, and then we want to see this area act. And this is the kind of area that you can then look, to get your long setups in. Okay, something like that. So that's the thoughts on GBP USD. Hopefully that was useful for you, Imran, my friend. And then we're going to move on to Rose now. Move on to Rose for our friend Duncan. Okay, let's take a look at this. So first thing that strikes me, we will come back to that, but a lot of gapping on this chart, even on a 4-hour for a huge liquidity provider like Binance. That means that probably a little bit illiquid, this asset. That's fine. So weekly scale, well, in terms of what's capping them, this is quite interesting, this actually, because, oh no, we did. So we've swept this, perfect. So we've swept this low, found some nice liquidity, and now price is ultimately moving a little bit higher. What we would look for here on a weekly scale is this. Price has already tapped into that, kind of rebalanced it a little bit, right? Again, look, bearish move down, retest of a bearish gap, and then price moves off to take liquidity below this low and ultimately this low. Now we're having this reaction back up. We don't know yet if this is purely price, people taking some profits, repricing, for this to come into here and then move lower. So on a weekly scale, ultimately when we kind of react at these gaps, we expect price to come down and seek out an old low. If it's a bullish gap, we expect it to seek out a high, obviously while they remain intact, not violated or inverted, right? So now we've taken this low, there's an expectation that price is kind of seeking a gap higher. Now we only have this gap above us, so I would be looking for this high that resides within that gap, to be quite a key target. Now, obviously, we invert this, close above it, then this very much comes into play for me, which is at 0.10854,602. Now, moving it here onto a daily chart, what I really like about the daily here is that, and I'm just going to draw the top one in, right? Bearish gap, resistance, 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 close above it here. Now, yes, price has corrected lower, right? So ultimately, this has kind of failed in sense, but it has been refilled and it has been inverted, meaning we don't worry about it on the way back up. That is key for me. I'm always saying to myself, where's price delivering from? And we can see here that price is delivering from this bullish gap. Now, I wouldn't kind of get ahead of myself here with Rose, and I'll tell you as for why, just because we are still bearish on this scale. And obviously, while Bitcoin tends to run hot, the lower caps like this will obviously, you know, take a little while to catch up. You want to see Bitcoin ranging really before your alts and your low caps really start to pop off. But I think as a start here, this is a good sign, right? We swept out this, which was residing within the low. Yeah, so that low was residing within this gap. Nice liquidity pool. So I think I'd really kind of dive into the lower time frames here and look for this gap. So this is a bearish gap currently. What we want to do is see price close above this. Yeah, and then I really like the liquidity cluster that's resting above here, right? All these untapped high, untapped high, untapped high will be a real kind of draw for price to come higher. This nice aggressive move down served to clear out all liquidity below these lows, often taking out a lot of over leveraged traders, allows people down here to fill their bids and then for price to move higher. But ultimately, we need to remember that we are delivering from a bearish gap, right? So while we're delivering from a bearish gap, we have to remain bearish, all right? We want to see a nice close above this, for price to move higher, and then this collection of down close candles here for this to be confirmed as an order block with price closing above. That would then give us extra conviction that price is then moving into these highs and maybe not just targeting this one here. Okay, so that's where we are on Rose. Hopefully that's been useful. Now we're going to take a look at ETH. Nice consolidation going on here on the 4-hour scale. What have we got here? You got a nice expansion to the highs. Price came down in here, set down this low. All right, or I suppose you could kind of technically take it from there, but I would say when this one's kind of come up here, set a clean low and then broken structure to the upside, if we were looking at this as a range, yeah, we're now back above the midline. We've held this really, really nicely. We can see how it offered resistance here, close above. What have we done? Deviation, got back below, taken the liquidity, sold off to the midline held, back up to the highs, secondary deviation, price sells off. But he's holding this mid quite nicely here, which is making me feel quite bullish on this on the 4-hour. But anyway, we'll start with a high time frame and work our way back, yeah? So what have we got in here? Well, one thing that surprised me with ETH, actually, I was talking about this with my friend Raz, who is one of the analysts that works with me over at the Bird Nest. We were really looking for this low, you know. It left these relative equal lows here as well, but it's fine. Look, price can react. This for me was a real sign of strength, right? Hey, Erica, how you doing, my friend? Sorry, hour earlier for the stream today, so we're going right into the end of it. We've got a couple more assets to cover, but it doesn't matter. I'll see you for the live trading this afternoon, my friend. So look, again, broken record time, I know. Inverted this gap, closed below it, but ultimately took liquidity at the same time, right? So then when we failed to see displacement below these lows and we got this, then our assumption is that price is drawing higher. So what does that mean for now? Well, actually, what I really like about this is we've just set this pretty tasty looking order block here. So I just want to see this area hold down on a weekly scale for ETH. And then I think, you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see a bit of consolidation here from ETH with the ETF being approved. But we just don't know what the market's going to give us, right? So as I'm looking at this here and realizing this is all one gigantic order block, price can easily dip down into this. So I wouldn't be surprised to see price kind of come back down, maybe in and around this gap, clear out any over leveraged players under these lows, and then really start to rip. If we want a bit more confirmation, if we get to that point, then we want to see this down close candle closed above, and then we expect continuation up, you know, at least to the next point of liquidity. At the moment, this is just in a nice consolidation, right? And as we said, when we look at this in terms of it being a range, and you know, three absolute legends in range trading, in my opinion anyway, which are obviously SC, who's the king, my good friend Trader Dank and Trader Exo. If you guys haven't kind of checked out any of their stuff, they make range trading look like an absolute breeze. But if we're kind of drawing this in as our own kind of range here, and we're saying, okay, well, if this is our range high, I think that this realistically is probably the range low. All right. Why have I taken that one? Well, you could also take this one. All right, not quite as clean in my opinion, but if you're looking to draw a range like this is what I would call kind of an expansion range. That means when you have a sharp move to the upside, you wait for that initial low to be set, yeah? Then you kind of see the reaction at the highs. So we get this deviation here, price comes back down, but doesn't take out the lows, right? Now, the reason I've redrawn this range, and never be afraid to redraw your ranges, is because this one looks cleaner to me, all right? Now, I know I'm drawing this in like this, and I'm just going to split this with a midline here. Yeah, we can just see, actually draw that a little bit further along here, right? We can just see here how this is kind of, you know, that midline is being so well respected here on ETH. So as long as we kind of hold this, and again, look how efficient this price action is. There's a few things supporting us here, the range mid, but also this massive bullish gap. So I think as long as we continue to hold these, I really think that we move higher. However, like I said, if price does break down here, I'm definitely going to be watching out the range lows. I want to see how price reacts here. And if we start getting down into here, as we showed when we look at our daily, and we look at that nice bullish gap down here, then this is going to be a great area for some bids, in my opinion anyway. It's certainly one that I'll be watching for, because when you think about the market inflicting damage on people, everybody wants this to run right now, yeah? So what do? Look at these long downside wicks. You get people aping into this, thinking that this thing is just going to absolutely rip. But what happens is price comes down, and then we're expecting the midline here. Come back down below this and we start getting it bearish, people start to flip bearish, people start to throw into short positions, generating all that liquidity we need, only for us to kind of find down here a nice reaction and for the price to flip. However, on a daily scale, if we started closing below this, quite simply, I would expect price to move just a little bit lower. Okay, guys? And then, actually, apologies, we have one more, don't we? Do for our friend Axel, who asked for injective. So obviously very old school chart for me here, back at this kind of key level, but let's just pop this onto a weekly and we can. A really good friend of mine, I haven't spoken to him for a while actually, was an analyst with us over at the Nest for a while, Julian, King Julian and I, we were talking about this area here, buying heavily into INJ, and our current legend Chris, Chris, you can find him at Chris Gem Hunter, I think, he used to be as Milky. You know, we're talking about just how this bottom here and these key levels, once we started getting above and holding these, you know, we were buying quite heavily at these positions here. And to be honest, buying even more here with IMJ. But forget about those just for a moment. Just want to kind of clear things up and give ourselves a really clear kind of, you know, always nice to have a nice, clean, clear chart. So this low is key for me. Why? Because we look for these abnormal wicks. Yeah. We've got the chart coming down into here, leaves this abnormally long wick. What do we get? Do we get displacement below? We get a slither of a close, which isn't good enough for us. We want to see at least a good chunk of the body below this. And then price kind of reacts and goes back up. So what are we looking for now? Well, the first part of the puzzle is already underway, because we've set our bullish order block here when price closed above. So actually this then becomes the next key target for me, resting up here at 32,975. All right, so that, I think we can get this expansion. I think as long as we hold this area, we move up towards there. Super simple, right? Now, on a daily scale, we can see these levels overlaid. That was the inversion on the low time frame, by the way, that led to this cascade lower. What are we doing? Well, quite simply, we're holding a bullish gap over here. We're holding bullish market structure. As long as we hold this, could even see a little dip down to retest this high time frame order block here. But as long as we hold this, then I'm expecting for price to move higher. All right, that's the key thing. We've also come up here and rebalanced the best part of this bearish gap. Although when we're on the buy side of the curve here, yeah, like this, then I'm less worried about the sell side of the curve over here. But I do want to see these areas and how price engages with them. But ultimately, while we hold this, I expect price to move higher. We also have some beautiful relative equal highs up here, which will be drawing price. So simple plan for this on the daily: hold this, want to see us move towards this. When we get here, we want to see a strong move above this area to act as support, and then for us to move higher towards this higher. Okay, I think once we get back above this level, I think this thing could really start to go. So just going to drop this down onto a 4-hour now. And yeah, absolutely, Rob, we will slip one more in for you, my friend, Ondo, and for my my absolute gem of a Polish bestie, my boy QBS Graphics. You can find him on Twitter. Immense trader, serious graphic designer, and busts my balls every single day together, but I love him to pieces. We've got this held here, right? So what I really like about this on the 4 hour is Injective's telling me that it might want to move now. Again, this is early stages, right? We need to recover market structure to be sure, but you know, as short as you can maybe be, I think we hold this area here. I think we can really start to push up. So I'm feeling quite bullish on this at the moment. But again, I think if we really want to kind of draw down into this, I think we want to see some key levels hold. This looks like it's consolidating here, could move down. I know we don't typically go down onto this lower time frame. Again, you know, slightly liquid here, but we've had this expansion up. Makes sense to me now if we look at that we could draw down to this level, retest it as support. Then we want to see if price holds here, okay? So we're going to finish up on Ondo. Here we go. So what we were looking for last time on Ondo, pretty clear, will probably become even clearer as we move to the lower time frames. Looking for this to hold support, which it did here, here, and here. Now our concern here is this big close through. This is no longer a bullish gap. This is an inversion, and we can see what a good job it's doing at the moment of acting as resistance. So we've got this swing low down here. No, this is a weekly scale, guys. So we will jump into something more granular. But for me, while we remain below this, you know, and it's worked the last couple of weeks, then favoring those kind of short positions. However, looking at this on a daily scale, what do we want to see? Well, what's price doing here? We've got this, you know, and it is a very small OB. You could even allow for this one. I would go for this one, I think, just because it's slightly bigger in the body. But if we're looking for what's currently supporting price in here, right? So this is your bullish order block, close above it here. Then we get that continuation to the upside. Ultimately, price took this higher and has then looked to correct lower. So one thing that's kind of working against the bulls here is this. Yeah, price has now inverted this. So we could look to this area for a retest, and it's telling us that might want to just seek liquidity a little bit lower. So I'd start by looking at this low at 0.9161. Moving this now onto a 4 hour. Again, similar kind of situation here, right? We've had an invert. Well, we're about to. If this candle closes where it is, we will invert this, giving us a little bit of a base. But we have a bigger and kind of clearer gap above here, yeah? We close above this here. What I really like the look of here, because remember, these are high time frames, right? So price can do all kinds of stuff. Price can come all the way up into this, get people super bullish, and then you see a big downside, upside wick like this, and price ultimately, when you then flick back to the higher time frame, has continued to respect these while it might not here. So I'm not afraid to long this if we get the close above here, because we have on an intraday basis anyway a lot of liquidity resting up here. But actually for Ondo, you know, I think I'd be looking on this, you know, when we see the kind of stacked resistance that's above, I think we start getting above this and this thing can absolutely fly. So Rob's got a good point for us to end on here. So let's just put this into a set of old data. And I think what Rob's talking about here on Ondo, I was also looking, let's have a look at this, drew a diagonal from the high early June, and notice we flipped it a couple of weeks ago and now retesting it. Is that legit? Yeah, absolutely. So let's have a look. So the June high up here, and again, you know, there's a lot of different ways to draw trend lines, right? One of the best ways that I learned was off of Tone Vase, actually, who is a wonderful human being, real old school, very, very much a Bitcoin maximalist, but was very good to me in my early trading career. And he used to run the desk at like Bloomberg. The guy's super knowledgeable. So you always want to anchor, right, to a high or a low, or a low, depends which way you're doing your trend line. And then for me, it's different. Some people say you want X amount of touch points, etc. I think the best way that he kind of looked at it was you want to draw it, you know, the line of best fit with the data that you've got. But the key for me that he always taught me is don't break bodies, yeah, while you're drawing that trend line. You know, find that fit, because then when the breaks happen like this, yeah, you're then looking for this to hold as support. So I can absolutely see why you'd be looking at that, Rob. I think that's legit. If we draw in our order block as well, on here, you can see this area provides nice confluence here. So you really want to kind of start to see the bounce coming in there. And then from there, I think we can move a lot higher. So super long stream today, guys. Apologies about that. I know I kind of rattled on the beginning, but I think, you know, we had some really kind of good questions come in early doors as well from Andre. So hopefully that was useful for people. I'll kind of ask QBS if we can tag this one up as a bit of an education live stream as well. But hopefully running through those has shed some light, certainly on what my thinking is on the market. Look, there's a lot of different ways to trade these markets, and I know a lot of different traders that trade them very, very profitably, and others that don't trade them profitably at all. But there's still a lot of, as we would say in England, ridiculous phrase this, but there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, right? So just make sure whatever you're doing, you kind of keep consistency, you let data drive your decision making and your trading, and just try not to let FOMO take over. All right, guys, I think we really could be looking at some really bullish conditions soon, and I think we might be that time where, you know, you just long everything and watch your portfolio go up, but we still need a bit of confirmation now, and I think we want to watch the dust settle from this ETH ETF. All right, got a feeling this Nashville event at the weekend could be quite big, so let's keep an eye on that as well. All right, Andre, Rob, everybody that was on the live stream today, let's give you all a shout out. For the ones that are in the comments anyway, our lovely friend Erica, Imran Khan, our friend Pavel, Axel, Sullivan K, Part Umoa, little in there from you. Didn't really hear from you again after that, but very much welcome to the stream. John Have Mercy, Duncan as well. Hello, mate. Good to have you on the stream. Let's have a look now. Our friend Nit, who's always sneaking into the streams as well. Simon, great to have you here. Goxel, apologies, a passer. I'm pretty sure that's maybe a greeting rather than that. But if it was a token that I missed, I do apologize, mate. And yeah, and to everybody else as well. If I've missed your name, I do apologize. We had, you know, always get a few thousand people on the stream. So not always able to thank everyone, but really do appreciate you being here. Hopefully it's been of use. Live Trading Legends, I'm going to see you in an hour over at the Bird Nest, and we're going to continue on with our NQ scalping today. And for the rest of you, I'll see you again on Monday. Do have a fantastic week ahead, and I look forward to seeing you all on here or around the nest.